The Galactic Military Academy's main courtyard buzzed with nervous energy as hundreds of cadets from dozens of species gathered for orientation. Towering Xylithians with their crystalline exoskeletons stood in perfect formation, their natural armor gleaming under the twin suns. The serpentine Vorthak coiled and uncoiled their muscular tails, displaying the lightning-fast reflexes that made them legendary pilots. Insectoid Kree clicked their mandibles in rhythmic patterns, communicating battle strategies through sound frequencies most species couldn't even hear. And then there was Sarah Chen, standing barely 5.5 feet tall among giants, her plain brown hair tied back in a simple ponytail. She wore the same standard-issue gray uniform as everyone else, but on her smaller human frame, it seemed to hang loose and ill-fitting. Several cadets nearby snickered when they noticed her, their translators converting their alien laughter into universal audio. "Look at that tiny thing," whispered a Xylithian cadet named Zex 997, his voice carrying the metallic ring common to his species. How did a human even qualify for the academy? Their homeworld isn't even a military power. His companion, a bulky Thoraxian with 6 arms and natural bioarmor, nodded in agreement. "I heard humans are weak. No natural weapons, no armor, no enhanced senses. They're probably only here because of some diversity quota." Sarah pretended not to hear them, focusing instead on the massive holographic display that materialized above the courtyard. Admiral Vex Prime, a distinguished Kree with battle scars across his chitinous face, began the welcoming address. His image projected authority and experience earned through countless battles across the galaxy. "Welcome, cadets, to the most prestigious military institution in known space." The Admiral's voice boomed through universal translators. "You represent the finest specimens your species have to offer. Over the next 4 cycles, you will be forged into the galaxy's elite military force." The Admiral's compound eyes seemed to scan the crowd before continuing. "But understand this, not all of you will succeed. Our standards are absolute. We do not lower our expectations for anyone, regardless of species, political connections, or perceived limitations." Sarah felt the weight of dozens of stares as the Admiral spoke. She knew what they were thinking. Humans were new to the galactic community, having only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. Most species still saw them as primitive newcomers who had somehow stumbled into advanced technology. During the equipment distribution that followed, Sarah watched as other cadets were fitted with species-specific gear. The Xylithians received energy amplifiers that enhanced their natural crystal formations. The Vorthak got neural interfaces that boosted their already superhuman reaction times. The Thoraxians were given powered exoskeletons that multiplied their already impressive strength. When Sarah reached the equipment station, the robotic quartermaster scanned her with multiple sensor arrays, its mechanical head tilting in apparent confusion. "Species human. Standard equipment package, basic training uniform, standard issue sidearm, nutritional supplements." The robot's voice carried a note of what almost sounded like disappointment. "No species-specific enhancements available." Behind her, she heard another round of snickering. "No enhancements because there's nothing to enhance," someone muttered. The first week of classes only reinforced the other cadets' assumptions. In theoretical combat strategy, Professor Click9 posed complex battlefield scenarios that required quick thinking and adaptability. While Sarah often had innovative solutions, her quiet voice was frequently drowned out by the louder, more confident responses of her classmates. In physical training, the differences became even more pronounced. Xylithians could leap incredible distances using their crystalline limbs as springs. Vorthak moved with fluid grace that seemed to defy physics. Thoraxians lifted weights that would crush most other species. Sarah struggled to keep up with even the basic exercises, finishing last in almost every drill. Perhaps the human should consider transferring to the Academy's civilian administrative program, suggested instructor Thex Omega after a particularly brutal endurance run where Sarah had fallen behind the pack. There's no shame in recognizing one's natural limitations, but Sarah noticed things others missed. During combat simulations, she observed that the Xylithians' crystalline structure, while providing excellent defense, created blind spots they hadn't learned to compensate for. The Vorthak's lightning reflexes sometimes caused them to react before fully analyzing situations. The Thoraxians' incredible strength made them overconfident, often charging into scenarios that required finesse rather than force. Her roommate, a friendly Aquarian named Ripplesong whose blue, Translucent skin shifted colors with her emotions, was one of the few beings who treated Sarah with genuine respect. "Don't let them discourage you," Ripplesong said one evening as they studied together. "I've watched you in class. You see patterns others miss." Sarah appreciated the support, but she could see the doubt even in Ripplesong's shifting colors. Everyone expected her to wash out. The betting pools had her eliminated before the end of the first semester. Even the instructors seemed to view her presence as a temporary inconvenience. The Academy's ranking system didn't help her case. Every cadet's performance was tracked and displayed publicly. Combat effectiveness, tactical analysis, physical performance, leadership potential. Every metric was quantified and compared. Sarah's name consistently appeared in the bottom percentile of her class. But late at night, while her classmates slept or socialized, Sarah studied. She analyzed every training exercise, every combat simulation, every tactical scenario. She memorized the strengths and weaknesses of every species represented at the Academy. She learned their fighting styles, their cultural approaches to warfare, their instinctive reactions under pressure. Most importantly, she began to understand something that her classmates, despite their superior physical abilities, had never needed to learn. She understood what it meant to fight when everything was stacked against you. She knew what it felt like to turn disadvantages into advantages, to find victory through intelligence and determination rather than raw power. As the first month of training concluded, Sarah remained at the bottom of the official rankings. The mockery continued, the doubts grew stronger, and even some instructors began suggesting she reconsider her career path. But Sarah Chen had not traveled across the galaxy and left everything she knew behind to give up at the first sign of difficulty. She was about to show them all that humanity's greatest strength had never been their physical capabilities. It was their refusal to accept that anything was impossible. The Academy's central training arena could house a small city, its adaptive architecture capable of recreating any battlefield environment known to galactic civilization. This morning, it had been configured to resemble the crystalline caverns of Thorax Prime, complete with unstable energy crystals that could explode if disturbed and narrow passages that limited movement. Commander Steelclaw, a veteran Thoraxian whose bioarmor bore the scars of 100 battles, stood before the assembled cadets with his 6 arms crossed. His voice carried the authority of someone who had survived conflicts that had claimed entire fleets. "Today, you face your first formal combat assessment," he announced, his words echoing off the artificial crystal walls. "This exercise will test everything you've learned about tactical thinking, environmental adaptation, and combat effectiveness. You will work in teams of 6 drawn randomly." Sarah felt her stomach tighten as the randomization system displayed team assignments on the massive holographic board. She found herself grouped with 5 cadets who had never spoken to her directly. Zex 997, the arrogant Zilithian who had mocked her on the first day. Bramblethorn, a Sylvanie whose woody exterior hid a sharp tactical mind. Plasma Strike, a Voltarian whose electrical abilities made him dangerous at close range. Ripplesong, her Aquarian roommate. And Ironjaw, a Caniran whose wolf-like appearance masked sophisticated hunting instincts. The other cadets in her group exchanged glances that clearly communicated their disappointment. Being paired with the Academy's lowest-ranked student felt like a guaranteed path to failure. "The objective is simple," Commander Steelclaw continued. "Retrieve the data core from the center of the maze and extract it to the designated safe zone. Enemy drones will patrol the area, programmed with authentic combat AI. These drones will not hesitate to eliminate targets they identify as threats." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Failure to complete the mission within the time limit results in automatic point deductions. Losing team members results in additional penalties. The team with the highest combined score will receive advanced placement in next semester's Special Operations program." As the teams dispersed to their starting positions, Sarah's group huddled together to plan their approach. Zex 997 immediately took charge, his crystalline features reflecting his determination to succeed despite being burdened with what he considered dead weight. "The solution is obvious," he declared, his metallic voice carrying absolute confidence. "I'll use my crystal resonance to detect the energy signatures of both the data core and the patrol drones. Plasma Strike can disable the drones with electrical overload. Ironjaw can scout ahead using his enhanced senses. The rest of you follow my lead and try not to slow us down." Sarah studied the tactical display showing the maze layout. The crystalline environment created multiple hazards. Unstable energy formations that could chain react if triggered, narrow passages that could become bottlenecks, and reflective surfaces that could either hide or reveal their position, depending on approach angles. "What about the energy crystals?" she asked quietly. "If plasma strike uses electrical attacks near them, won't that cause—" "The human thinks she knows better than me," X997 interrupted, his crystal formations flashing with annoyance. "I've been studying crystalline environments since before your species achieved spaceflight. Leave the thinking to those evolved for it." Ripplesong's skin shifted to a diplomatic purple. "Perhaps we should consider all options." "Time is wasting," Ironjaw growled, his wolf-like features showing impatience. "Let's move before other teams claim the best approach routes." The team advanced into the maze following X997's plan. His crystal resonance did indeed allow him to detect energy signatures, and they made good initial progress. But Sarah noticed problems immediately. The narrow passages forced them into single file, eliminating their tactical flexibility. The reflective crystal surfaces created a maze of false readings that confused even X997's specialized senses. When they encountered their first patrol drone, everything went wrong at once. Plasma Strike unleashed his electrical attack as planned, but the energy discharge reflected off the crystalline walls and triggered a chain reaction in the unstable formations. Explosions erupted throughout the nearby caverns, causing structural collapses that blocked their planned retreat route. "Retreat!" X997 shouted, but it was too late. The patrol drone, only partially disabled, had called for reinforcements. More drones converged on their position, while the team struggled to navigate the maze of unstable crystals and blocked passages. "This is your fault," X997 accused Sarah as they took shelter behind a cluster of stable crystals. "If you hadn't questioned my plan, we wouldn't have wasted time and been caught off guard." Sarah didn't respond to the accusation. Instead, she closed her eyes and listened. While her teammates argued about blame and alternative strategies, she processed everything she had observed about their environment, their opponents, and their own capabilities. "The drones are using active scanning," she said suddenly. "Their sensors ping every few seconds to map the area. But the crystal formations are creating interference patterns." "So?" Ironjaw demanded, his enhanced hearing picking up the approaching sounds of more patrol units. "So we can use the interference to mask our movements, but only if we time it precisely with their scanning cycles." Sarah pointed to a series of crystal formations that created a path toward the center of the maze. "If we move only during the dead zones between scans, we can advance without being detected." Bramblethorn, who had remained silent throughout the argument, spoke up. "The human's observation appears tactically sound. My botanical analysis indicates these crystal formations would indeed create sensor shadows." "This is insane," X997 protested. "We should use our superior abilities to fight our way through." "With what?" Plasma Strike asked, gesturing to the unstable crystals surrounding them. "One more electrical discharge in here and will cause a cascade failure that brings down half the maze." For the first time since entering the maze, the team looked to Sarah for guidance. She felt the weight of their expectations and their skepticism. This was her chance to prove that humanity belonged among the star's warriors. "Follow me," she said quietly. "Move only when I signal. Stay low, and whatever you do, don't use any energy-based attacks until we're clear of the unstable formations." Sarah led them into the crystalline labyrinth, her mind calculating timing and distances with the precision her species had developed through millennia of survival, against impossible odds. While her alien teammates possessed superior physical abilities, Sarah had something they lacked, the human gift for seeing solutions where others saw only obstacles. As they moved deeper into the maze, following Sarah's precisely timed instructions, even X997 began to realize that perhaps there was more to human capabilities than met the eye. The deeper sections of the crystal maze presented challenges that none of the Academy's databases had adequately prepared them for. The energy crystals here pulsed with unstable rhythms, creating fields of interference that made even basic communication difficult. Worse yet, the patrol drones had adapted their scanning patterns, learning from the early encounters with other teams. Sarah crouched behind a cluster of resonating crystals, watching the geometric patterns of drone movements through gaps in the crystalline formations. Her team waited behind her, their earlier confidence replaced by grudging attention to her observations. Even Zex 997 had stopped questioning her tactical decisions after her timing had successfully guided them past 3 separate patrol units. "The central chamber is just ahead," Ripplesong whispered, her translucent skin shifting to match the blue-white glow of the surrounding crystals. "But there's a problem." Sarah followed her gaze and saw it immediately. The data core sat on a raised platform in the center of a circular chamber, but the entire space was ringed with the most unstable energy formations they had yet encountered. Worse, 6 heavy assault drones patrolled the chamber in overlapping patterns that covered every possible approach route. "Impossible," Ironjaw growled softly, his enhanced senses detecting the energy signatures. "Those crystals are seconds away from critical overload. Any disturbance will trigger a cascade that could destroy half the Academy." Bramblethorn's woody exterior creaked as he analyzed the situation. "My botanical knowledge suggests these formations are artificially maintained at the edge of stability. It's a perfect defensive position. Approach the objective, and the resulting explosion eliminates both the intruders and the prize." Through the crystal walls, they could see other teams attempting various solutions. A group of Thoraxians tried to brute force their way through, their powered exoskeletons providing protection until the energy feedback overloaded their systems. A team of mixed species attempted to use ranged weapons, but the reflective surfaces made accurate targeting impossible. "We need to abort," Zex 997 declared, his crystalline features dim with resignation. "This scenario is designed to be unsolvable. It's probably a test of knowing when to retreat." Sarah shook her head, her brown eyes never leaving the chamber as she studied the patterns. "No, it's solvable, but not the way any of us were thinking." She pointed to the assault drones. "Look at their patrol patterns. They're not random. They're following a mathematical sequence. And see how the energy crystals pulse? They're not independent either. They're part of a larger harmonic system." Her teammates gathered closer, following her analysis despite their skepticism. "The drones are keyed to the crystal harmonic," Sarah continued, her voice growing more confident as the solution crystallized in her mind. "They use the energy pulses for navigation and threat detection. If we can disrupt the harmonic sequence without triggering an overload, the drones will lose their navigation reference." Plasma Strike finished, understanding dawning in his electrical field patterns. "They'll be blind." "But how do we disrupt the harmonics without causing an explosion?" Ironjaw demanded. Sarah was already moving, pulling out her standard issue equipment pack, while other species had received advanced gear suited to their enhanced abilities. Humans had been given basic tools that most cadets considered primitive, but Sarah had spent weeks studying every piece of human equipment, understanding their capabilities in ways their designers had never intended. "Sound waves," she explained, assembling what looked like a simple acoustic resonator. "The crystals respond to specific frequencies. If we can generate a counter-harmonic at precisely the right amplitude and timing—" "That's insane," Zex 997 protested. "Calculate the wrong frequency and you'll trigger the very cascade we're trying to avoid." "Then I better not calculate wrong," Sarah replied calmly. She spent precious minutes analyzing the crystal pulses, using her basic human equipment to measure frequencies and amplitudes. Her teammates watched in growing amazement as she worked with tools they had dismissed as useless, finding applications that their advanced species-specific equipment couldn't duplicate. "You're attempting to do manually what would require a quantum computer," Bramblethorn observed. "The mathematical complexity alone." "Humans are good at math when we need to be," Sarah said simply, making final adjustments to her improvised device. "Our species survived on a world where getting the calculations wrong meant death. We developed an instinct for it." The first pulse from Sarah's device sent a barely audible wave through the crystal chamber. The energy formations flickered, their harmonics shifting slightly. The patrol drones wavered in their movements, their navigation systems struggling to compensate. "It's working," Ripplesong whispered, her skin shifting to excited yellow patterns. Sarah fine-tuned the frequency, each adjustment causing more disruption to the chamber's harmonic balance. The patrol drones began moving erratically, their sophisticated AI unable to process the conflicting sensor data. But then disaster struck. A team of Kree warriors attempted to rush the chamber from the opposite entrance, their insectoid forms moving with military precision. Their presence triggered additional security protocols, and the assault drone suddenly shifted to high alert status. "They're about to activate combat mode," Ironjaw warned. his predator instinct sensing the change in the drone's behavior patterns. Sarah's device was still locked onto the harmonic frequency. If she stopped now, the drones would regain full functionality and detect her team immediately. But if the assault drone switched to combat mode while the crystals were destabilized, the resulting energy discharge could level the entire training facility. "I need 30 more seconds to complete the sequence," she called out. "We don't have 30 seconds," X997 shouted as the nearest drone began pivoting toward their position. Without hesitation, her teammates sprang into action, not following any plan or formal strategy, but responding to an instinctive understanding that Sarah's unconventional solution was their only hope of success. Plasma Strike created a controlled electrical field that interfered with the drone's sensors without triggering the crystals. Ironjaw used his natural stealth abilities to create false movement signatures that confused the automated targeting systems. Bramblethorn extended root-like appendages that absorbed and redirected energy pulses. Ripplesong shifted her body's refractive index to create optical illusions that masked their team's true position. Even Zex997, despite his earlier protests, used his crystal formations to create harmonic buffers that protected Sarah's device from energy feedback. For those 30 seconds, 6 different species worked in perfect coordination, each contributing their unique abilities not for personal glory, but to enable the success of their human teammates' impossible plan. Sarah's device completed its sequence, and the chamber's harmonic balance shifted into a new configuration. The assault drones stopped moving entirely, their navigation systems completely confused by the altered energy environment. The data core sat undefended. "Now," Sarah whispered. Ironjaw sprinted across the chamber with inhuman speed, grabbed the data core and returned before the drones could recalibrate. The mission was complete. As alarms began sounding throughout the facility, indicating the end of the exercise, Sarah's teammates looked at her with expressions that had nothing to do with mockery or doubt. "How did you know that would work?" Zex997 asked, his metallic voice carrying genuine curiosity instead of condescension. Sarah smiled as she packed away her improvised equipment. "Because humans have been solving impossible problems for our entire existence. We just had to learn how to do it with friends." The Academy's main briefing hall buzzed with excited conversation as the combat assessment results appeared on the central holographic display. Sarah watched from the back row as team rankings materialized in order of performance, her stomach tight with nervous anticipation. When her team's designation appeared in 3rd place overall, a wave of shocked silence swept through the assembled cadets. Teams led by experienced Thoraxian warriors and elite Kree, tacticians had placed lower than a group that included the Academy's supposedly weakest cadet. Commander Steelclaw stepped forward to address the assembly, his 6 arms gesturing toward the results display. Team 7's performance demonstrates an important principle that many of you have forgotten in your pursuit of individual excellence. Victory belongs not to the strongest or fastest, but to those who best understand how to transform disadvantage into advantage. Sarah felt hundreds of alien eyes focusing on her as the commander continued his analysis. Their tactical approach showed innovation, adaptability, and most importantly, the ability to recognize and utilize each team member's unique contributions. These qualities define true military leadership. After dismissal, the Academy's social dynamic shifted noticeably. Cadets who had previously ignored Sarah's presence now nodded respectfully when they passed her in the corridors. Study groups that had excluded her began sending discreet invitations through Ripplesong. Even some instructors began acknowledging her contributions during class discussions. But the most significant change came in advanced tactical analysis, taught by Professor Vex Minor, a grizzled Kree veteran whose compound eyes missed nothing. The class focused on historical battle scenarios from across the galaxy, analyzing decisions that had determined the fate of civilizations. "Today we examine the Battle of Kepler Station," Professor Vex Minor announced, his chitinous voice carrying the weight of personal experience. Federation forces were outnumbered 10-1. The enemy possessed superior technology, better positioning, and overwhelming firepower. Logic dictated surrender or retreat. The holographic display showed the battle scenario in 3 dimensions. A massive enemy fleet surrounded a small Federation station, their weapons already charging for what should have been a devastating first strike. Instead, the professor continued, The Federation commander achieved total victory with minimal losses. Who can explain how this was possible? Several cadets offered conventional military explanations. Better tactics, hidden reinforcements, technological advantages, superior training. Professor Vex Minor dismissed each suggestion with a click of his mandibles. Cadet Chen, he called out unexpectedly. Your species is new to galactic warfare. What insights might fresh perspective provide? Sarah felt the familiar weight of scrutiny as her classmates turned to observe her response. But this time the attention felt different. Instead of mockery, she sensed genuine curiosity about what the human might contribute. The Federation commander couldn't win through conventional strength, she began, her voice steadying as she analyzed the displayed scenario. So they had to make the enemy's advantages into weaknesses. The enemy fleet was massive, but that made them difficult to coordinate. Their superior weapons required more complex targeting systems that could be confused. She pointed to specific formations in the holographic display. If the Federation forces could create false sensor readings and manipulate the enemy's communication networks, the larger fleet might actually work against itself. Professor Vex Minor's compound eyes glittered with approval. Elaborate. Sarah stood and approached the display, her confidence growing as the solution became clearer in her mind. The Federation commander used the station's sensor array to broadcast false ship signatures. The enemy fleet thought they were surrounded by a massive hidden force. When they tried to engage these phantom ships, their own crossfire disabled their real vessels. Precisely, Professor Vex Minor confirmed. The Federation commander was a human named Admiral Martinez. She understood that sometimes the greatest strength lies in convincing your enemy to defeat themselves. The revelation sent ripples of surprise through the classroom. A human had been responsible for one of the most studied victories in galactic military history. This illustrates why the Federation command structure has become increasingly interested in human tactical thinking. The professor continued. Your species brings unique perspectives shaped by evolutionary pressures that other civilizations did not experience. After class, Sarah found herself surrounded by cadets eager to understand these human tactical principles. Zex 997, his crystalline features reflecting his newfound respect, was among the first to approach. I underestimated your species, he admitted. Perhaps we could study together? Your unconventional approaches might complement my technical knowledge. Similar offers came from cadets representing dozens of species. Sarah realized that her initial isolation had been replaced by something far more valuable than mere acceptance. Her classmates were beginning to see human thinking as an asset rather than a liability. The transformation accelerated during subsequent exercises. In orbital combat simulations, Sarah's team consistently outperformed groups with superior individual skills by finding creative solutions to impossible scenarios. During diplomatic negotiation classes, her ability to find common ground between radically different species proved invaluable. Most significantly, other cadets began seeking her input on their own tactical problems. Sarah found herself tutoring a Thoraxian who couldn't understand why brute force failed in certain scenarios, helping a Voltarian develop patience for long-term strategic planning, and teaching a group of Kree the human concept of controlled improvisation. Her academic rankings reflected this growing reputation. From the bottom percentile of her class, Sarah steadily climbed toward the middle rankings, then higher still. But more important than individual scores was her emerging role as someone who could bring out the best in others. You're becoming what humans call a force multiplier, Ripplesong observed during one of their evening study sessions. Your presence makes everyone around you perform better. Sarah smiled at her friend's observation. That's always been humanity's greatest strength. We're not the fastest or strongest or smartest at any single thing, but we're excellent at bringing different abilities together and making them work in harmony. As the semester progressed, Sarah began to understand that her initial struggles had actually prepared her for something greater than individual success. Learning to overcome disadvantage had taught her to recognize potential in others that they might not see in themselves. The Academy's ranking system still tracked individual performance, but Sarah realized she was becoming something the metrics couldn't fully capture. She was becoming exactly what the galaxy needed, someone who could unite different species and capabilities into something greater than the sum of their parts. And in the most challenging exercises yet to come, that ability would prove more valuable than any enhanced physical capability or species-specific advantage. Sarah Chen was not just rising through the ranks. She was redefining what it meant to be a leader in the galactic age. The Academy's largest amphitheater had never hosted a gathering quite like this one. Representatives from every major galactic civilization filled the curved seating areas, their diverse forms creating a tapestry of colors, shapes, and energy patterns. Military attachés from the Federation's highest command levels sat alongside Academy instructors, all focused on the central holographic display that would soon reveal the most important examination in the institution's history. Admiral Vex Prime stepped onto the central platform, his scarred exoskeleton bearing the decorations of campaigns that had shaped galactic civilization. Behind him, the holographic display showed a three-dimensional map of a star system that no cadet recognized. The Epsilon Eridani situation, he announced, his voice carrying throughout the amphitheater without need for amplification. 3 days ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected an approaching fleet of unknown origin. Initial analysis suggests technology and tactical approaches unlike anything in our databases. The map zoomed in to show defensive positions around the fourth planet in the system. Federation installations dotted the surface while orbital platforms maintained protective formations in space. Intelligence indicates this hostile force will arrive in the system within 72 hours, Admiral Vex Prime continued. Traditional command protocols would normally handle such threats through established military hierarchies. However, preliminary analysis of enemy tactics suggests conventional approaches may prove inadequate. Murmurs rippled through the audience as the implications became clear. The Admiral was describing a scenario where the galaxy's established military doctrines might fail. Therefore, the Federation Command has authorized an unprecedented field exercise. Senior cadets will be given complete tactical authority over a sector defense, with real-time consequences for success or failure. Sarah felt her breath catch as the Admiral's compound eyes seemed to focus directly on her section of the amphitheater. This exercise will test not just tactical knowledge, but leadership ability under the most extreme pressure. Cadets will command actual Federation vessels with full crews. Their decisions will determine the fate of over 2 million civilians currently under evacuation protocols. The holographic display shifted to show current rankings of senior cadets. Sarah's name appeared in the upper third of the list, a position that would have seemed impossible just months earlier, but her placement wasn't what caught her attention. It was the complexity of the tactical scenario being revealed. The unknown enemy fleet consisted of vessels that moved in completely alien patterns, used weapons that operated on unfamiliar principles, and employed strategies that defied conventional military logic. Every simulation run by Academy supercomputers had resulted in defensive failures. Cadet assignments will be announced in 6 hours, Admiral Vex Prime concluded. Use that time wisely. The fate of Epsilon Eridani depends on your ability to find solutions where none appear to exist. As the assembly dispersed, Sarah found herself surrounded by cadets from her various study groups and tactical analysis sessions. The months of collaboration had created an informal network of allies who looked to her for the kind of innovative thinking that had become her trademark. This is unlike anything we've trained for, Sex 997 observed, his crystalline features reflecting the concern shared by everyone present. The enemy's capabilities suggest they've developed along completely different evolutionary lines. Our standard tactical doctrines assume certain universal constants about warfare. Bramblethorn's woody exterior creaked with nervous tension. My botanical analysis skills are useless against opponents we can't classify or understand. That's not necessarily true, Sarah replied, her mind already working through the implications of what they had seen. Every form of life, no matter how alien, has to follow certain basic principles. Resource management, communication, adaptation to threats. If we can understand their fundamental drives. Ironjaw's enhanced hearing picked up approaching footsteps. Company coming. Academy officials. Commander Steelclaw approached their group with several high-ranking officers Sarah didn't recognize. Their insignia suggested they represented Federation Command's highest levels. Cadet Chen, the commander announced formally, you have been selected to command Defensive Sector 7. You will have tactical authority over 3 Federation cruisers, 12 escort vessels, and ground-based defensive installations protecting the primary evacuation zones. Sarah felt the weight of the moment. Sector 7 was one of the most critical defensive positions, protecting the largest civilian populations on the planet's surface. Failure would mean catastrophic casualties. Your team selections? One of the unknown officers inquired. Without hesitation, Sarah began naming cadets from the diverse group that had formed around her over the past months. Species that had never worked together in Federation history. Individuals whose capabilities she had learned to understand and coordinate. Zex 997 as Tactical Systems Coordinator. His crystalline computation abilities will help process multiple data streams simultaneously. Bramblethorn for environmental analysis and adaptive planning. Ironjaw for threat assessment and early warning. Plasma Strike for electronic warfare and communications. Ripple Song for diplomatic interface with evacuating civilian populations. The officers exchanged glances that suggested surprise at her unconventional selections. Traditional Federation doctrine called for teams organized by species specialization, not the mixed groups that Sarah preferred. These assignments are irregular, one officer noted. Standard protocol suggests homogeneous command structures for maximum efficiency. Sarah met the officer's gaze steadily. With respect, sir, standard protocol hasn't provided solutions to this threat. If we're facing truly alien opponents, maybe we need truly integrated responses. Admiral Vex Prime himself stepped forward, having approached during the conversation. The Federation Command is specifically interested in observing non-standard approaches, Officer Dex Epsilon. Cadet Chen's team selections will stand. As the officers departed to finalize other assignments, Sarah gathered her chosen team around the tactical display. They had 18 hours to prepare for an encounter that would test everything they had learned about working together across species lines. We don't know what we're facing out there, Sarah addressed her team. But we know what we are. We're proof that different species can work together to achieve things that none of us could accomplish alone. She gestured toward the holographic star system where their unknown enemies approached. Whatever's coming, they've probably never encountered anything like us either. We're going to show them what happens when humanity's gift for integration meets the galaxy's finest military minds. Ripplesong's skin shifted to determined gold patterns. When do we begin? Sarah smiled, feeling the familiar surge of confidence that came from having the right team facing the right challenge. We begin now. We have a civilization to defend, and 18 hours to figure out how to do the impossible. The Academy's corridors had never seen such intensive preparation as Sarah's team began, planning for a battle that would determine not just their graduation status, but the fate of millions of lives across the Epsilon Eridani system. The Federation cruiser Harmony had never hosted a command crew quite like Sarah's team. The ship's bridge, designed with Kree efficiency and Thoraxian durability, now accommodated 6 different species working in unprecedented coordination. Captain Rex Delta, a veteran Kree officer with 30 years of space combat experience, watched with fascination as the young cadets prepared to defend his sector. Hostile fleet detected at the edge of scanner range, reported the ship's Voltarian sensor officer. Configuration unknown. Approach vectors. Extremely irregular. Sarah studied the tactical display, her human eyes processing patterns that her enhanced alien teammates fed through their specialized abilities. The enemy ships moved in formations that seemed to defy both physics and tactical logic, their vessels shifting between positions that should have caused catastrophic collisions. They're not avoiding each other, Zex 997 observed, his crystalline computations analyzing the movement data. They're phasing through occupied space somehow. Dimensional displacement technology? Or they're not individual ships at all, Bramblethorn suggested, his botanical background offering unexpected insights. My species creates group organisms that appear separate but share root systems. Perhaps these vessels are connected in ways our sensors can't detect. Ironjaw's predator instincts were already tracking threat patterns. Whatever they are, they're hurting our defensive formations. Look at how our other sectors are responding. They're being pushed into specific positions. Sarah felt the familiar rush of clarity that came when puzzles began resolving into solutions. The enemy wasn't just attacking. They were manipulating the Federation's responses to create a larger tactical advantage. They've studied our defensive doctrines, she realized aloud. They know how we're supposed to react to various threats. They're using our own training against us. Plasma Strike's electrical field fluctuated with concern. If they've analyzed our standard responses, then conventional tactics are exactly what they want us to use. The enemy fleet was now close enough for detailed scans, and the results defied every assumption about spacecraft design. The hostile vessels appeared to be partially organic, their hulls rippling like living tissue while energy patterns flowed through them like neural networks. "Captain, incoming transmission from command," announced Ripplesong, who had interfaced with the ship's communication systems. "All sectors report enemy technology beyond current understanding. Traditional weapons appear ineffective." Captain Rex Delta's compound eyes focused on Sarah with growing respect. "Your orders, Cadet Commander?" Sarah felt the weight of command in a way that no training exercise had prepared her for. Real ships with real crews depended on her decisions. 2 million civilians were evacuating below them, trusting in her ability to buy them time. "We're not going to fight them the way they expect," she announced to her team. "If they've studied our conventional tactics, then we give them something they've never seen before." She turned to address the bridge crew. "All ships in Sector 7, prepare to implement Formation Delta 7. Sex 997. Coordinate with navigation to create quantum resonance fields between our vessels. Bramblethorn. Analyze their organic components for biological vulnerabilities. Ironjaw. Prepare counter-hunt protocols." The Federation officers exchanged uncertain glances. Formation Delta 7 didn't exist in any tactical manual. "Cadet Commander," Captain Rex Delta asked carefully, "what exactly is Formation Delta 7? Sarah's smile carried the confidence of someone who had spent months learning to turn disadvantages into advantages. "Something no military academy in the galaxy teaches, Captain. We're going to fight like humans." The next several minutes transformed Sector 7 into something unprecedented in galactic military history. Instead of maintaining traditional defensive formations, Sarah's ships began moving in patterns that mimicked human social structures. They created overlapping support networks where each vessel's weaknesses were covered by others' strengths. "Hostile fleet engaging outer perimeter," Ironjaw reported. "Their weapons are adapting. Each attack is more effective than the last." "Of course they are," Sarah replied. "They learn from each engagement, but learning requires assumptions about what they're observing." She activated the ship-wide communication system. "All vessels implement Confusion Protocol Alpha. Zex 997 begin quantum resonance cascades. Make our ships appear to be something they're not." The crystalline cadet's abilities created interference patterns that made Federation vessels appear larger, smaller, or multiply on enemy sensors. Bramblethorn contributed by analyzing the organic enemy ships and identifying biological stress patterns that could be exploited. Plasma Strike coordinated with the fleet's electronic warfare specialists to create communication networks that confused enemy learning algorithms. Every time the hostile ships adapted to one tactic, the Federation forces had already shifted to something completely different. "They're trying to retreat," Ripplesong announced, monitoring enemy communications through her aquatic species' natural affinity for pattern recognition. "Their formation is breaking apart." But Sarah recognized the tactical withdrawal for what it really was. "No, they're not retreating. They're regrouping to implement whatever they've learned from this encounter." She studied the tactical display, watching enemy movements with the analytical skills that had carried her from the bottom of her class to command position. The hostile fleet was repositioning for an attack that would overwhelm any conventional defense. "All ships prepare for close formation engagement," Sarah ordered. "We're going to do something these enemies have definitely never seen before." Captain Rex Delta's mandibles clicked with nervous anticipation. "What now, Cadet Commander?" Sarah looked around the bridge at her diverse team, each representing the finest capabilities their species could offer, all united under human tactical leadership. "Now we show them why humanity's greatest strength was never our individual abilities," she announced. "We show them what happens when an entire galaxy learns to fight together." The enemy fleet was accelerating toward their position, weapons charging for what appeared to be a decisive assault. But Sarah Chen was no longer the mockable human cadet who had arrived at the academy months earlier. She was something new in galactic civilization, a force multiplier who could unite different species into combinations that were greater than the sum of their parts. The Battle of Epsilon Eridani was about to become a demonstration of humanity's true gift to the stars.